we're going to go over some concepts that you need to learn and understand if you want to compete and win at the 5.0 level. The first one is the most overlooked and underrated shot, which is the fourth ball. How do you deal with somebody hitting a third shot drop? Then we're going to cover with our dinks. After we hit a good dink and we recognize that that shot might give them trouble, we're going to lean in and look for a flick in return. After that, we're going to go over how to be offensive in the transition area. Instead of just resetting and making our way up to the kitchen line, how can we go on the attack and score some fast points? Lastly, we're going to finish the video with setting up ERNEs. There's a ton of opportunities to put pressure on your opponents if you know what to look for. There's a couple key things that we're going to go over that'll make the light bulb switch for jumping the kitchen. I'm going to hit some fourth balls. I want you to watch and see what I'm doing and compare it to what you do personally, and then I'll explain why I'm doing it this way. This shot's so important because if you don't hit a good fourth ball, it's going to allow your opponents to get a free ride right up to the kitchen. You want to do everything in your power to keep them back. The first thing on the checklist is you should be trying to get every ball out of the air if possible. You saw some where I was really low and really scooped them with my wrist. That's a learned trait, but it's super effective because I'm not letting the ball bounce. If you can get the ball out of the air, it's going to force your opponents to stay back. As soon as the ball bounces on my side, it's a green light for them to approach as much as they can. Any ball out of the air, they have to stay back. The second thing that should be on our checklist is if the ball does bounce on our side, we should be creating space backwards so we can rip it. We do not want to short hop it and just flip it right over the net. We want to do everything to step back and hit the ball hard. This is the main thing we want to avoid. When I do that, that gives him a free ride to the kitchen. Look how my feet were. They were like this, the ball came, and I get caught in this position. We want to turn sideways, step back, and hit a tennis shot. Here's another scenario that will really get us into trouble. Watch my wrist on this one. Here we go. Players are taught to be glued to the kitchen line and never come off of it. We want to do the opposite. In that scenario, really hit a great drop, and I got stuck trying to wrist the ball. When you do this shot from behind you, the ball is going to float up and allow your opponent to come kill it. Now that we learned what we should be doing, I want you to watch me hit a couple more fourth balls so everything can sink in. The last thing we should know, let's pretend there's 4 players on the court, me, my partner, and then 2 opponents back. Let's say those opponents are hitting drops, they're trying to get to the kitchen. Since their balls are coming in slow, I need to do everything in my power to find my forehand. If they hit a drop here or over here, I should not be taking backhands. I need to be taking forehands and utilizing the whole court. We can hit our forehand so much harder. Instead of this, we should be doing this. Opening up and finding your forehand in a point will put so much pressure on your opponents because the ball comes in way faster. If they end up getting a ball to your backhand and you don't have a really strong flick or really strong two-hander, oftentimes it will allow your opponents to get back in the point by hitting a good reset. The next thing we're going to cover, when we're all dinking, and let's say I hit a good dink, I need to recognize that I hit a sharp, aggressive dink that might give my opponents trouble. And instead of me dinking and standing here being ready for it, I need to dink and lean in after it, expecting them to hit a high ball that I can attack. This is a prime example of a small window of opportunity opening up that we need to take advantage of. If we're not flicking and attacking this, it allows our opponents to get right back in the point. This is an example of exactly what I'm talking about. As opposed to this, watch my ready position after I hit the dink. The key to this is all in the ready position. After a lower level player dinks, no matter if it's an all-star dink or a terrible dink, their ready position is this every time. For the advanced player, if they hit a dink that they think is bad and they might get attacked, they're in that ready position that we just went over. However, if they hit a dink that they know is aggressive and going to give their opponents trouble, they're reaching in after it all the way. My arm is fully extended and I'm shrinking the kitchen. If I'm back here, all this extra room they have to work with. When I'm leaning in, I just cut away all of this from the kitchen. We're gonna play some points out from this side angle. I really want you to see when I'm like this, more neutral, and when I'm like this, more offensive. This exact concept applies to cross-court dinking as well. Let's say I'm in a cross-court dink battle, and I know on these dinks, I'm not putting too much on them. I'm just more or less getting them over. I'm gonna hit and be kind of neutral like this. However, let's say I get a ball here, and I really cut it nicely, and I know I hit a great dink. I'm gonna give my opponent trouble. Instead of me coming back to this position, I'm gonna hit that dink, step over with my paddle in the middle, anticipating them hitting a bad shot off my dink. Pop-up comes and I can smoke it right down the middle or right at the guy in front of me. Passive, passive, aggressive. This skill alone of being able to recognize and execute will put you light years ahead of the competition in 5.0. That's the strategy that I use to win countless tournaments. I never really sped up off of the bounce. My partner and I would just dink, dink, dink until we got a pop-up, and then we trusted our flicks, and that would allow us to win the point. If you're wondering what paddle I'm using, this is the Carbon 1X 16 millimeter, and I have 4 inches of lead tape just at the throat area. I'm a sponsored player and content creator with Carbon. If you purchase any gear, any paddles off of their website, make sure to use the discount code TANNER for 10% off. Now we're gonna flip the script on that fourth ball and we're gonna talk about me, this player. We're gonna go over recognizing when my opponent hits a bad fourth ball and how I can take advantage of it and come kill it. Some key things to look for. Let's say I'm in the transition zone and I hit a good reset off of my paddle. I see Ridley's ready position to get that ball is below the net down there. Seeing that right there is a telltale sign for me that I should be running towards the kitchen with my paddle up. The ball can only come up and will allow me to slam it. The next thing we're gonna look for is if I hit a good reset that I know is gonna bounce in the kitchen. If I see Ridley step back like that, that tells me to take as much ground as I can until he's about to hit it. Then when he does hit it, I'm gonna split step and get ready to attack his ball. The reason I'm at the advantage is because he has to go back to forward, where for me, all I have to do is go forward. So my momentum is going to allow me to hit harder and win the point. The last thing we're looking for, and the only time I'm not going to approach the kitchen, is if I hit a reset off of my paddle and it bounces in the kitchen, but it bounces high and allows Ridley to set up in the kitchen like this and rip it. That's when I'm not going to approach. He's at the complete advantage and I'm at a big disadvantage. On that ball, if it landed, I would have approached. That first one, he's got the advantage. The last topic, and my personal favorite, is how to set up ERNEs. The main thing to look for when setting up an ERNE is when the ball gets behind somebody on the sideline. So let's say I'm dinking here, and somebody puts an aggressive ball right here. I didn't get it here, it's back here. This is prime time ERNE. So we want to try and replicate this scenario as many times and as often as possible throughout the game. We're going to go over the couple ways to create that. The first way to execute this is to move my opponent around. So let's say I put a ball here, I put a ball here. Basically, I want to put a ball to the inside of the court, then sharply to the corner like that. That exact ball, really hit that shot again, like that, will allow me to jump and hit a perfect ERNE. We're going to play a point in real time. For that one, I was able to catch Ridley's dink out of the air here and put it to that corner. This is so deadly because when I do this to hit a ball, Ridley has to freeze because the first thing that has to be going through his mind is, oh shoot, I might get attacked. So he has to be on his heels, ready for an attack. If I don't want to attack it, I can dink it to the middle or I can pull it across. Pulling it across is more of a risky shot, but sets up the ERNE. So when I catch it out of the air, he's on his heels, he's expecting an attack. It's going to make him lunge for the ball, which will put a ball right down the line that will allow me to attack. This exact scenario will happen when my opponent and my partner are in a cross-court dink battle. When they're dinking, especially for a while, nobody expects anything to change. So if Ridley, he's dinking with him, say Ridley tries to change the pattern and put a ball here, just to make my partner hit an awkward shot, that will allow me to step in, steal it, pull it that way, like this, and we'll instantly set up the ERNE. This is what it'll look like. Let's pretend they're dinking cross. Okay, he puts a ball to the middle, I come in, I steal it, like that. That works so much, especially with me being lefty. It's something my opponents don't see too often. The second scenario is whenever we can take a ball out of the air, we want to take it in that same angle, sharp, diagonally, out of bounds. That will also get him off guard and be forced to take this shot, which is a perfect ERNE. That's all I have for you today. If you enjoy this, please subscribe to my channel. I post a video like this every single week.